Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Greg. Welcome to the channel. If anybody's interested in a Thunder Astrology reading, go to greg.thunderwizard.com, if I remember that correctly. But today I wanted to talk about Graha Sambandha. And this is basically aspects in Vedic astrology and Thunder Astrology specifically, which we do more of that, or we bring in that shamanic perspective of Vedic astrology into it, which, in my experience, is very powerful on a intuitive spiritual warrior type of a way. So this Graha Sambandha, means planet, and Sambandha means connected together. So this is planets connected together, aspects. One of the most powerful ones is one that I just experienced in the last reading that I gave, and this is it's called Parivartana Yoga, and yoga means union, and there's all kinds of yogas in Vedic astrology. I mean, there's endless. I don't even know all of them, but I mean, I started reading some of them, and there's all kinds of them. So when in the beginning, when I first started learning something about getting deeper with astrology, it's like overwhelming. There's so much stuff to consider. It's like, wow, okay. As usual, I got to take things one step at a time, to really let these things sink into my unconscious, into my conscious, and let it work itself out on its own. So some of the more core basics, I have them down now, but I still need to really keep up on it too, or else I'll start forgetting or something. I don't want to do that. I want to get more connected to it. So I've been doing that. But this connection, this Parivartana Yoga, and I got it written down over here. That's why I keep looking over here. I wrote some notes down. This is when the planets trade houses. So, for example, let's say I wrote examples down right here, so I don't have to stop and think about examples. So let's say the moon is in Gemini, and Gemini is lorded over by Mercury. So then Mercury is in Cancer, and Cancer is lorded over by the moon. So you see that mutual connection between the two of them. Moon is in Gemini, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is in Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon. So both of these two planets are in each other's houses. So they're looking at each other. The moon is looking over at Mercury in Cancer. And, it's like saying, how's my house over there? You taking care of my house? And Mercury's like, yeah, I got your house. I got everything covered over here. Everything's good. How's my house over there? And Moon's going, hey, I got your house covered too. Everything's good over here. I'm taking care of everything. It's like, well, you take care of my house and I'll take care of yours, and it's all good. So they get this powerful connection to each other. And basically what's going to happen is they're going to be able to emit more of their positive traits than their negative traits. And what I've read in the book that I have, it says it's 100%, that they have a 100% connection, meaning that all of those positive traits are going to be emitted out of those planets through the influence of that house that they're in. So, I agree with that in a way, but, we all go through different ups and downs, so there are times when these things are going to be off balance too, It's just natural for those things to happen. But when they have this connection like that, they're very strong. So that, or you don't know, I don't know. But what we first do when we look at these different aspects is we want to see, okay, moon is in Gemini. What is the relationship to the moon with Mercury? And we know that the moon is friendly to all planets because the moon is the mother goddess energy. The moon accepts her children as they are. She loves them no matter what. So we know the moon's good in Gemini. But let me take, for example, the Mercury in Cancer. So you want to look at the relationship with Mercury and the moon. And we know that Mercury doesn't get along with the moon. It's like an enemy with the moon, because the moon is all about the nurturing energy, caring for other people, emotional togetherness with people, bonding. And Mercury just, wants to go out and think, wants to think, and it doesn't want to be caring for other people, it wants to be handling business and communication and talking about stuff, and, wants to expand its business. And On the other side of it, it wants to be that prince energy. It wants to go out and flirt with the ladies and have a good time. It's the prince, whereas the moon is the queen. And the prince is just like, I don't want to listen to mother. I want to go out and do my thing. So there's that connection there. So we look at that, and we know Mercury's an enemy to the moon, and Mercury's in Cancer. So then we want to look at how far away the moon is from Mercury in Cancer. So if Mercury, let's say the first 3 houses to the left or the right of Mercury in Cancer, those first 3 houses, that distance from the moon to Mercury, it'll be a friendly relationship. So if it's within 3 houses to the left or right of Mercury, the moon, then we know it's a friend. So then we go, okay, Mercury in Cancer is enemy, and then plus friend equals neutral. So now Mercury's state of mind sitting in the sign of Cancer is neutral, to where he's kind of like detached. He's not going either negative or positive. He's kind of like not shining much of his energy, but he will shine his energy. It's just he's not too thrilled about being in that house. He's not really that angry either, but it's more of that detached mode. And if the moon is farther away than those first 3 houses where Mercury is in, those other houses down here, wherever it sits in the chart, but if it's in those other houses, then moon becomes an enemy to Mercury. So enemy plus enemy equals great enemy. So now Mercury is like just really agitated in Cancer. Now Mercury is pissed. It's like, oh man, I'm in this emotional house of Cancer. It's all about the home and caring for people, and I don't want to do that. I want to be out enjoying my life. So this can make like the person all caught up in their intellect when it comes to their emotions. They're constantly thinking about, I'm so pissed about this situation, and that person did this to me, and that, and this to me, and this can turn into paranoia and delusion. They can overthink things too much. They can really stress themselves out, become off balance. They can't get it out of their mind. They're constantly going over these things. That's what that great enemy kind of relationship can do. But even if that is going on, when it comes to this Parivartana relationship, all of that stuff gets canceled out because the houses are trading each other. Mercury is in Cancer and Moon is in Gemini, so they're taking care of each other. No matter what these other relationships, they get canceled out. So that's a good thing. So I had that in the last reading that I did, and it was one of the planets was in a house where normally it would cause a disconnection between a relationship to another person within their life, which I had that same planet in that house, and that created more of that distant relationship with me. But I didn't have this Parivartana connection where this other person had that connection. So when I explained that, they were able to relate to that. And it turned it more into a positive relationship. So that's one of the things that does. The other aspect is the conjunction relationship. That's when 2 planets or 2 or more planets are in the same house. So they usually, once they're in the same house with each other, they turn into enemies, because it's like 2 people living in the same house together. They got to live together no matter what. Even if they get along with each other, they're in the same house with each other, and eventually, people don't want to be around each other. You know what I mean? Familiarity breeds content, that kind of deal. So that happens. But at the same time, they're living in the same house with each other, so they got to get along. They got to work together. And over time, as a person matures, they learn to work with these energies. So if it's 2 malefic planets like Rahu and Mars, they're still going to have to learn to work together. I have that in one of my houses, Rahu and Mars. And if on the negative side, that can create a lot of aggression and anger and violence. Fighting. It can get really negative. But on the positive side, you can really use that energy to be focused. How can I reach a lot of people through a business? Rahu's mass communication. Mars is energy, courage. You can use those energies to benefit you in life. All you got to do is, you got to learn to balance your life, however that is, through this Thunder Astrology or, living your soul's greatest joy is what it's all about, you know. But there are ways to keep us empowered and focused on that joy, and one of them is through Thunder Astrology, Vedic Astrology. And the other aspect is the mutual aspect, and that's just when a planet is aspecting another house, and there's another planet in that house, and it's aspecting that same house that other planet's in. So I wrote down another example here. Let's say Saturn's in the 5th house, and Saturn aspects the 3rd, 7th, and 10th house from it. So let's say the 10th house aspect of Saturn in the 5th would be the 2nd house. So let's say Mars is in the 2nd house, and Mars aspects the 4th, 7th, and 8th house from it. So the 4th house aspect of Mars would be Saturn in the 5th house. So now they're both looking at each other. Mars is looking at Saturn, and Saturn's looking at Mars, even though they may be in different signs, you know. So when a planet aspects another house, it's always, you know, it's concerned about that house, and, you know, it wants to put its influence on that house. So Saturn is over here looking at that planet, that house that Mars is in, and saying, you know, I'm concerned, I want to influence that house. And Mars is saying, well, I'm concerned about your house too. I want to influence that house too. So they're like, okay, well, let's work together, you know. And the other aspect is when it's only one of those planets is aspecting another house. So let's say, what did I get here? Okay, I wrote down another one. Let's say if Saturn is in the 1st house of Aries, Aries is ruled by Mars, and it's aspecting the same thing. Saturn aspects the 3rd, 7th, and 10th house from it. So if Mercury was in the 10th house of Capricorn, okay, this is a different situation. This is more of the when a planet aspects its own house. This is a good thing too. The planet will never damage its own house that it's aspecting. You know, it's looking at its own house, you know. Even if it's a malefic planet, it's not going to damage its own house. In this case, Saturn too, it's a malefic planet. So it won't damage its own house. So there's that connection there too. But if there's a planet in that 10th house and it's not aspecting back to the 1st house of Saturn, you know, so there's not that mutual connection. So it's not as strong as that mutual aspect. It's still a good connection, but it's just not as strong. So Saturn's looking at that 10th house with Mars, and, you know, it's in its own house too. It's aspecting its own house, so it's giving it that energy. You know, it wants to help out. It wants to help Mars in the 10th house, its own house. But Mars is like, yeah, but I'm not influencing the house that you're in. You know, I'm looking over here. You know, I'm not influencing that 1st house. I want to influence something else, you know. So those are the different, those are some of the different kind of connections. There's a whole bunch of different yogas that can cancel out all of these friendships and enemies and neutrality that go on. But yeah, I just wanted to explain some of those ones right there. And yeah, when you if you do decide to get a Thunder Astrology reading, I do give you a mantra and a planet and deity connected to your chart. You know, the one that's the most beneficial in your chart, and it empowers all of your houses, and it'll put sometimes more focus on a certain house also than all of the 12 houses. But it's going to balance the whole 12 houses, and it's going to really empower you. It's going to push you to open up about issues you have, if you have any issues, you know, unconscious issues, to really help you. You know, if you really want to bring in that real energy of the universe that's all around us, you know, it's right here. You want to bring that into your body and use it. This is one of the ways to do it, is through Thunder Astrology. So I'll leave the link on the bottom, and that's all I wanted to talk about. So, guys, have a good one. Peace.